Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Skills and Abilities. So now that we've finished off with the Barbarian, we're moving on to the Necromancer. Now, I have already done quite a few Necromancer videos, and if you haven't checked those out, I do already have up the Raised Skeleton, Corpse Explosion, Iron Golem, Clay Golem, Fire Golem, Amplify Damage, Blood Golem, Lifetime Curse, Attract, and Decrepify are currently already up on the channel. So if you want to check out any of those, feel free. Today we're going to be starting with the Poison and Bone tree, and namely we're going to be starting with the Poison section. So we're going to start with Poison Dagger. Now Poison Dagger is an interesting ability because the Necromancer is otherwise not a melee character. None of the abilities that the Necromancer has, for the most part, work with melee attacks. Poison Nova is a spell, Poison Explosion is a spell, Bone Spear, Bone Spirit are both spells, Teeth is a spell. They have lots of spell curses, and even their summoning abilities don't involve any kind of melee attacks. So this is actually the one and only melee ability that the Necromancer has. And on top of that, it does require you to use a dagger to actually execute the ability. Now, up until recently, there haven't been a lot of really good daggers to use on a Poison Dagger Necromancer. One of the best, probably the best, is a Zotted Eth Flesh Ripper, which is probably was probably the best dagger for Poison Dagger Necromancer pre 2.4.3 or 2.4, I think, or something like that. And they came out with Plague. Now, Plague is a very interesting dagger in terms of a Poison Dagger Necromancer, because not only does it offer the level 12 lower resistance when struck, which is very useful, it also offers a level 15 Poison Nova on striking in combination, which is a synergy for Poison Dagger. So when you're looking at Poison Dagger, you notice that you have to build Poison Explosion and you have to build Poison Nova. When you're using Poison Explosion, you have to build Poison Dagger and you have to build Poison Nova. And when you're building Poison Nova, you have to build Poison Dagger and Poison Explosion. They are all intrinsically tied together, and no matter which one of these builds you choose, whether it be a Poison Nova Necromancer, a Poison Explosion Necromancer, which doesn't exist, Poison Dagger Necromancer, you have to build all three, which makes these all a 20, 40, 60-point investment, and you're always going to at least get 1 point in lower resistance, if not more, to get that negative res. So it's a 60-plus point investment, and I can't really pinpoint exactly how much that is because everybody kind of has varying degrees of what they go into with low resistance. And depending on whether you're using a Plague Dagger, you might not even bother because you got the lower resist proc from that, if you're a melee Necromancer, that is, because it is when struck. So if you're going to get in there and you're going to get, struck on a regular basis, then it probably will be going off a lot. Now, Poison Dagger does have some rather interesting interactions with other skills that make it rather unique in the Diablo world. I did some pretty significant testing on this, and the answer to the question is that it does stack with Venom. However, Venom, which is an ability that specifically adds poison damage to attacks, usually is the dominant one. And you guys know what I'm talking about when I say dominant. If you have like two dogs in a household and one's trying to be dominant over the other, one of them humps him, right? Well, normally Venom is the dominant skill. However, in the situation of Poison Dagger, Venom is actually the not dominant skill. Poison Dagger is the dominant skill in this scenario. And so what happens is that when you apply Venom to a Necromancer who is utilizing Poison Dagger forces Venom to apply to its rules. And you might be asking, what the hell does that even mean? How does Poison Dagger force Venom to apply to its rules? Well, in the same way that Venom forces other skills to apply to its rules, which is the 0.4 second duration, Poison Dagger forces Venom to apply its entire damage over the correct duration in addition to Poison Dagger. And it adds a huge amount of damage as a result. It's actually a set amount of damage because it's a multiplication of Venom. And we can go to an assassin real quick, and I could show you this just so that you understand what I'm talking about. We're also going to have to break out a calculator for this, so don't be surprised, because it does get kind of complicated. All right, so here's Venom right here on the Assassin. And if I throw some points into Venom, you'll see that at level 15, which is the only level Venom, as far as I understand, that you can get on a Necromancer anyway, comes from the Treachery Armor or maybe even a Grief Sword, but it's level 15. So it does about 305 damage to 325 damage over 0.4 seconds, which doesn't really seem like a lot, but it's 0.4 seconds. And what happens is Venom is forced to follow the rules of a real skill over the duration of basically what Poison Dagger is. And so you have to multiply the damage out to find out how much damage it would do over the duration of Poison Dagger instead of over the duration of its own skill level. And this means that you're going to have to multiply it a couple ways. And let me bring up my calculator here real quick. Alright, so here's the calculator, and I'm going to do some of these calculations on the screen for you. So right off the bat, it has a 0.4 second duration. Alright, so we need to find out what the 0.1 second is so that we can multiply this correctly. So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to take 305, and we have to add it to our damage, which is 325, which gives us a total of 630. Then we need to divide that by 2 to find the average, which is an average of 315. We then need to divide 315 by 4, which is going to give us our 0.1 second duration, which is 78.75. Then we need to multiply that by 10, which is going to get us our full duration of 1 second. So over 1 second, how much damage does Venom do? And it's 787.5. Then what we need to do is we need to go find out how long Poison Dagger actually lasts for. So what is the duration of Poison Dagger? And we're going to go back to the Necromancer, pull him up real quick. And the Poison Dagger duration is 16.2 seconds. No, sorry, 23.2 seconds. Okay, 23.2 seconds on this boy with level 54. And I think if we go to our other boy, which is Poison Bomb, he has a lower duration because his level isn't quite as high. Let's use his instead. So his is 16.4 seconds. So we're going to multiply this times 16.4. And that's going to give us a total damage of 12,915 poison damage, which is going to be added to our total output. And I think you can actually see this in the character panel. I'm not 100% certain, but we can always go check it out. I can go stand in the fire in River of Flame, and we can wait for the. Actually, no, Fade is on striking. No, Venom is on striking. All right, hold on. So we just need to go bonk something then. So we should go from 27,000 as soon as Fade procs, or Venom procs. And as you can see, we went from 27,000 to 28,000. And this is the total damage over the entire duration. So it doesn't really, like, add up the way that you think it does because it's poison damage. And Venom is weird. It's just weird. I believe if you search for Poison Dagger on the net, I've actually done this before, and you can find the exact calculations that are a little bit jankety. Let me take the calculator off the screen, by the way. And Poison Dagger. Sorry, I should have had this up to begin with. Alright, so when Venom has been cast, its bitrate is also added, and so is its length. Length from items are ignored. And the total damage output increase is... So bit rates from poison damage items are added. Their lengths are also added. Then the total length is divided by the number of items, and the total bit rate is applied for that length, rounded down to the nearest frame. So it's an interesting formula, but basically what happens in a nutshell is that the damage from Venom is forced to apply to the rules of the damage of Poison Dagger and is added directly to the Poison Dagger's total damage output. And it's actually a pretty nice little bump. Honestly, just very nice. If you're going to run Poison Dagger, you should probably proc your Venom to just, even if you just have Treachery sitting in your stack or cube or something like that, and you just go outside of town and just proc it. If you're going to be a Poison Dagger Necro, I would recommend procking your Venom, before you go do whatever it is you're doing, because it's going to add a pretty huge portion of damage to your Dagger's output. Now, when it comes to this particular ability, it does have a really large amount of attack rating bonus, 750% attack rating. And this is, of course, because, well, if you can't hit a target, you're not going to poison it. And it's not like the Necromancer has a lot of abilities which are going to increase his overall attack ratings. He doesn't have masteries or blessed aim or or penetrate or any of those other abilities. So when you look at Poison Dagger with that massive 750% attack rating increase, it's really there just to compensate for the fact that the Necromancer really has no other way to increase his attack rating. And if you do go with a max block Necromancer, which does require a pretty significant amount of dexterity, it'll increase that attack rating massively. Because if you take a look, I can go to my regular attack here, and you notice I only have 1,360 attack rating total. That's my total attack rating with dexterity. And when I'm using my Poison Dagger, because of that massive 750% bump, the 1,100 what was it again? I can't even remember now. The 1,360 attack rating very quickly balloons out to 11,560 because of the massive attack rating bump on this ability. And of course, it's also taking into account other attack ratings that I might have, not just my dexterity, but if I'm running things like Ravenfrost, or if I have, and I don't even have a Ravenfrost on, by the way. I've got Ravenfrost right here. Throw that on there, and now I'm at 14,193, which is kind of insane for a Necromancer. Now, as a general rule, Poison Dagger tends to be one of the poorer skills in this tree. It's definitely, like, if I were to rank all three Necromancer poison skills, Poison Nova is definitely number 1, by far. Poison Dagger is number 2, and Poison Explosion is by far number 3. It's actually the worst of the lot, and we're going to be going over Poison Explosion next, so, and we'll have some fun with that. One thing that I will recommend is that if you want to build a Poison Dagger Necromancer, that you take a look at my video, my Poison Bomb video, because I do a theory craft on a Poison Dagger Necromancer. That is the goal of the video, is I'm just trying to see if a Poison Dagger Necromancer can really be an actual thing. And this is him for the most part. He doesn't have a mercenary right now, but this is Players 8. I'll make sure that it's on Players 8 before I say that it's Players 8. This is Players 8, and on Players 8, he can effectively kill some targets pretty fast. Utilizing lower resistance, which is obviously going to be a necessity for him. You can see his damage output is actually pretty decent on P8. And he basically just runs around stabbing everything. This particular build is also utilizing, though, the effect of the Poison Nova coming from the dagger itself, so that as I'm attacking, I'm casting these Poison Novas constantly with every single strike, which of course is making use of the synergies and things that come from that. And, as a Poison Dagger Necromancer, you can always cast Poison Nova yourself when you're in these situations with a large number of monsters. So, if you wanted to, you could always cast Poison Nova alongside of it. And that's one of the things that we talked about in the beginning, is that they're inseparable. Like, you don't have one without the other. Love and marriage, go together like a poison and bone, neck Necro, he's got all his stupid skills, and he can't have one without the other. Poison Necro, Poison Necro. He's got some stupid skills, and that's okay. Yes, we don't like this one. It sucks. It needs some better stuff. Yes, it freaking does. Anyway, I think that's pretty much everything when it comes to Poison Dagger. The only other thing that I would probably recommend with Poison Dagger is that you use one that's indestructible. As fun as this build was involving the Plague Dagger, one of the main things that I had that was an issue with this build was it was just the weapon was always broken. Like, no matter what I did, no matter where I went, no matter how, daintily I used my abilities, the weapon was always broken. And so I feel like with a Poison Dagger Necro, you would just be better off using something like a Zotted Eth Flesh Ripper, just so that you wouldn't have to worry constantly about it being broken all of the time. As always, thanks for watching, and tune in next time, because we're going to be going over the really terrible skill, Poison Explosion.